Davy Perdue. He's been distracting you with babies, but he's the one who's made a mess. Perdue chewed up businesses. 8,000 jobs were lost. He took $1 million bonus. And also millions more from Obama's stimulus. And Perdue has no problem with Obama's Common Core standards that nationalize schools, eating away at local control. David Perdue. Something doesn't smell right because the change he wants stinks.
I'm Jack Kingston, and I approve this message.
Dirty politics is nothing new in America or anywhere else for that matter. When it comes to those wanting to stay in office or snatch that chair away from the person already there, some people will stoop as low as possible and then go another foot or so in the southerly direction. But we as Americans eat it up and fall for a lot of the negatives. Therefore, why should anyone stop? It works. What happened in Georgia over the last several weeks is a good example of what happens when campaigning believes there's no place like the mud. Welcome to MidPoint, the news director for the Tea Party News Network, Scottie Hughes, and the host of Agenda on SiriusXM, Rabin-Havt joins us. Gentlemen, or I should say gentlemen and lady, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Ed.
All right, Scottie, ladies first always on this program. I'm going to let you go first. Let's go ahead and look at David Perdue's commercial here. But isn't it true, though? It still is a little bit of getting in the mud here, and America just loves it, even though we see it every single day.
Well, of course, and this is what politics is. Politics is very, very dirty, and obviously it works because it worked in this case. But now here's the difference. If you look at this case versus what's happening in Mississippi, I don't consider negative politics to be bad if it's the truth. But you look in Mississippi where it went negative, and it was the truth, but it worked against the person that it was actually happening. So the key is you have to be careful in how you handle negative politicking. Are you telling the truth about the person to slander, or the truth to actually get at the truth about the person and what's going on?
Ari, how about that? It's not so bad if there's a little mud being slung as long as it's truth. What do you think?
Mud's been slung in politics for 2 centuries now. It's part of politics. If if you're a candidate and you can't take it, you should probably find another profession. And frankly, you put voters in a focus group room, they always say, I hate negative politics, I hate negative politics, but it's what influences them at the ballot box. So it's going to keep happening. Let's
talk about influence, though, because Perdue's closing ad, it was bought and paid for by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. They dropped almost $2.5 million into Georgia to support Kingston. Now, these are disclosures from the FEC, the Federal Election Commission here. So aren't we still talking about dirty politics? It still has to be connected to dollars.
Well, I'm glad.
Is always going to be connected.
Hang on, hey, Scottie, hold on one second. I'm going to let Ari go ahead on that first. Ari, go ahead.
Well, I'm glad more people are standing up and seeing the corrupting influence that outside big money can have on races, and I hope conservatives can look at this race and say maybe we do have to do something about the way our campaigns are financed.
Scottie, it's fair to say that there's a lot of talk about corruption in here when you get down to that kind of money and mudslinging elections.
Yeah, I love it that he brought up conservatives need to be the one to look at it. I don't think conservatives are the ones that are sitting here saying that we don't need to be looking at. I think you need to look at the Democrats that are usually the ones that have the hidden back dollars that are being contributed to the money, that are being contributed to these campaigns. They're the ones that are pouring the monies into these PACs. They're the ones that are, worried about hiding the dollars that are going into the funds. Look at our commander-in-chief right now. He's out there campaigning right now instead of actually trying to be president and being a leader when we have all these issues going on. So it's not conservatives that are the ones trying to sit here pour these money into the campaigns. It's the Democrats on the other side that aren't allowing real campaign finance reforms to be happening.
Ari, to you.
So what real campaign finance reform would you agree to? I mean, Republicans have rejected the Disclose Act. Republicans cheered Citizens United. Republicans cheered McCutcheon. And Republicans are bringing a series of more cases to dismantle McCain-Feingold. What real campaign finance reform are you willing to concede to?
Go ahead, Scottie.
I think the issue is, you want to sit here, all the Democrats want to do is to protect that the unions can sit here and have all the money, that the big dollars, the unions can be the ones that can contribute, but you and I, the individuals, can't have that money. All that you want to sit here and look about campaigns can do is that you want to sit there and say, okay, you can sit there and contribute to as many. You want people to be selective about it, and that's where the problem is.
I don't want people to be selective about it. I think there is a corruption problem. McCutcheon creates a corruption problem. Citizens United creates a corruption problem. Frankly, a lot of the campaign finance systems that have been built up have created corruption problems. And look, you want to talk about union money, you want to talk about corporate money, you want to talk about individual money. Let's have a conversation about all the money and we can have that.
Well, let's get to this here, because David Perdue's spokesman, Derek Dickey, he went right after the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. He said, and I quote, "They will back a career politician over a successful Fortune 500 CEO because they know the politicians will say and do anything to keep the campaign money flowing." Ari, you have to admit that that makes a point, because we've seen this now for generations. Career politicians put the money in the pocket and they'll do just about anything. I don't think it makes a difference whether it's left or right here. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, no, I think in this case, no, I don't think it doesn't make a difference left or right. I think there is a problem, and I would hope we could all get together and try to solve that problem. And I think this race highlights in a Republican primary how money can influence an election.
Scottie?
Well, and I think and I think that is something that we can't agree on, both the Democrats and the Republicans. But Ari, that's you and I talking about it. We're not in elected office. We can sit there as voters say it, but it's the people in elected office. We're asking the kids to police their own cookie jar, and they're not going to do that. They're going to stay on the campaign trail. But when they get in office, it's like asking them to give themselves term limits. And until we actually hold their feet to the fire, which we're not going to do, they're not going to be expected to do it. But what this case, I think, does show is that people don't want career politicians. That's what the message was. You've seen this case when it looks at Eric Cantor. I think it's also in Mississippi. I think people are getting tired of seeing these folks that go to D.C. and stay in D.C. People are tired. They know that the economy is not being won by career politicians. We need a more business-like environment in Washington, D.C. And I think that's one of the messages that won in this case.
Go ahead, Ari.
Well, I think career politician versus non-career politicians, there are some career politicians on both sides of the aisle who are actually very good. There are some businessmen who are in politics who make awful elected officials. I think you have to look at the individuals. I think in terms of solving the problem, you have people outside the system like Lawrence Lessig, a liberal, Mark McKinnon, a Republican, joining together with their new organization, Mayday PAC, to try to get some bipartisan agreement on how to fix this.
All right, now I'm going to ask both of you here, because we touched on it very briefly here, but McDaniel versus Cochran, what went on in Mississippi, that in itself was very dirty, very down in the mud here. Why is it that the mud works? Are Americans simply just snowed under by it? They love the lies. They love all the high-tech values of the commercials here. Why can't an honest, here's a tough one. I'm going to put two words together nobody does. Honest and politician. I'm going to put both in the same sentence here. Why is it so tough then? And Scottie, I'll start with you. For the honest politician to throw out there what they're going to do, what the real facts of the case are, the real facts of the election are, and not have to dig into the dirt, which most time is false, or it's loaded with hyperbole.
Well, there's two things here. First of all, I don't think we need to look at Mississippi and compare it to the rest of the country. This is what makes Mississippi so dangerous. The mud that's usually slung on most primaries is for their own party. The mud that was slung in Mississippi was actually for the other party. It was not to motivate Republicans in Mississippi to come out and vote for Cochran people. It was to actually motivate the Democrats to come out and vote for the Republican, a.k.a. Cochran. That's what's dangerous about that. It was to demonize Republicans so the Democrats would come out and vote for a Republican candidate. And that's why I think we've got a Pandora's box that potentially could be opened by the Republicans, future establishment Republicans, if we don't take care of it.
But why aren't Americans smart enough? Why aren't Americans smart enough to look past all the hype?
Well, that's the issue. We Americans have not done that up until now. We have allowed these guys to get away with this. But I think Americans are waking up, and I think the Democrats are actually getting to see it as well. They're waking up on their sides of the lines with the immigration policy and what's going on the border right now. You are seeing, I think, urban areas waking up going, wait a minute, we have all this extra money to pour into the borders. We have, billions of dollars to pour into taking care of this, but yet you've not taken care of the urban areas like you promised, President Obama. I think the Democrats are starting to see the false promises that have been happening that the Republicans have been screaming about for the past 6 years.
All right, I got 45 seconds left.
Up.
I got it. I got 45 seconds left. Ari, I'm going to give you the last word on that about Americans listening to the hype in the mud.
Look, I think negative ads have worked. Negative campaigning has worked for 200 years. I think it's gotten better and better and better. You've had masters of it, masters in the advertising world doing it. I think advertising works. That's a fact of life, and I think we have to move beyond and we have to get to the root cause of the problem.
Can we all agree that one of the root causes of the problem is for Americans to look at all of these elections and all of these campaigns and start to at least look at what the issues are instead of letting the advertisements tell them what they are in many ways? Can we agree on that, Ari?
That would be lovely.
All right. How about that, Scottie? Can we agree on that?
I think we should start at ground zero and let's start 100%. Everybody has to get reelected right now.
Okay, but can we start on what I said, at least making sure that everybody in the voters
100%.
check with it? 100%. I love that. At the last minute, right there, I got everybody on 100%, and that's just the perfect way to go ahead and end it right now. Ari and Scottie, thank you so much for being here. We will absolutely do it again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Quite frankly, that's what we've been telling people here for a long period of time. All these dirty campaigns, yes, we know Americans love it. Come on, the ads are great. They're well done. But you still have to look at what the facts are, what the issues are. You have to find out where the hyperbole is and where all the little nuances are, because every campaign ad has got a little something in there that is not quite true. On deck, a dog does the weather in Outland, and why those techie nerds in Silicon Valley are more important to the presidential race than you might think. It's all coming up right here on MidPoint, where every day we question everything.